Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Important Work. I'm your host, Chris Angel, and I'm joined today by Bob Burg, the author of The Go-Giver, the Go-Giver Influencer, and all the other Go-Giver series. Bob, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure, Chris. Great to be with you. Seems like we just spoke a little while ago.
I know. It does feel that way. Yes, the Referrals podcast was a great interview. We've already had great feedback on that episode, both episodes, actually. So thanks for being on that. I wanted to take the conversation further in this show. The show is dedicated, for those of you listening, to your important work. Like those of us who feel that there is a stirring in our soul that what we've been doing up to this point and all the successes we had were preparation for what we really get to do with our life, like our life's work. And Bob, I just felt like you were a great person to talk to about that because you've been able to capture some really important work in your books and in your speeches. And I'd love to kind of explore that with you. So let's just start with important work. Like how would you describe your important work? What is it that you're on this planet doing?
You know, I think in a sense, I am here to carry on my dad's work. And he has always had a way of making other people feel genuinely good about themselves, helping build their confidence and helping them to see more in themselves than they see more in them than they ever did in themselves.
Yeah.
And I think in a way that's kind of what I'm here to do. And so definitely, building upon my dad's work and most of the things I've learned. And certainly, I study a lot, I read a lot, I listen a lot, and I learn from a lot of people. I learn from everyone I can.
Yeah.
But I would say that when it comes to being able to work with people and being able to hopefully influence people in the way that I try to do, I'd say those lessons I learned from observing my dad.
Yeah. So good. I love it. That you've clearly reached success from the outside looking in. Over here, it's like, wow, Bob's, reached some great levels of success. For you, I'm curious if there were moments where you were trying to find it. You were trying to find the important work and things, you tried things and they didn't fit, but then something clicked. I'm just curious about that journey.
Well, I tried many things and failed.
Yeah.
That's,
right.
I've had many more failures than I have successes. So, but yeah. So, I think for a long time, I kind of had an idea what I wanted to do but maybe until you get a little older, you don't really put it together with your life's purpose and so forth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No.
What were some of the,
Huh?
Go ahead. Yeah,
no,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I think you can always try, even from a young age, to look for what you want to do. I'm not saying that you have to wait on that. I would just waiting on it. And there's the old advice, people say, well, how do you know what to choose for a career? And people say, well, just, and here's the advice you get that is partly true.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it sounds real good. It's not totally true. And that is just follow your passion and the money will come. It's not wrong, but it's not complete.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's great. Keep going. Yeah. I love this.
Well, by all means, find something you love, right? It's something you're passionate about. Why not? I mean, if you have a choice, by all means, go after something you're passionate about, which tends to be something that you really love and that you're probably pretty good at, that you have an aptitude to, that with a whole lot of hard work, you can get to that point of excellence, but you probably enjoy the work, right? Because that's part of the passion. Okay, and that's great, and go after that. But before the money comes, you've also got to be able to connect that with a marketplace who will pay you for that work.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of, follow your passion, the money will come. No, follow your passion. Find a way to connect that to the marketplace in a way that you will be financially remunerated for that.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, you've got a very expensive hobby, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with a hobby, but that's not, a hobby is not what's going to help you live a life of abundance financially.
Is there a distinction between, so like when you say that, I hear there's the work I could be really good at because it's a passion of mine, and then there's remuneration. There's people who are willing to pay for that, and then I hear like this. There's this other thing that becomes what I'm trying to call important work. There's what I'm really good at. There's people that'll pay for it. And then there's this other thing called important work. They may not be separate. Do you see that as a separate thing? Are they connected?
Depends what it is, I guess.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
Hopefully that what you're really passionate about is something that really adds a lot of value to the world.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You said in The Go-Giver Influencer, there's actually a line that I loved. So if you guys haven't read that book yet, you should read it. It was like, there's something noble about business. People get into business and they nudge the world forward. They nudge the world forward. Yep. And they make the world better. And I felt when I read that, I was like, that to me is important work.
Well, exactly. And that's why business is noble in and of itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Because business by the very nature brings value to the world, or you couldn't stay in business. This isn't a basically free market-based economy where no one's forced to do business with you.
Right.
The only way you can stay in business and be profitable is by bringing exceptional value to others, serving others. That's how you profit. Okay.
Yeah.
So business in and of itself is noble. Now it may not be earth changing if that's what you feel you have to do to feel happy, but I don't think everything has to be earth changing. It has to be world changing. You know what I'm saying? That's why we say nudge the world forward. That doesn't mean, there's some things you're going to do. I mean, Steve Jobs put a dent in the universe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and he did not everybody's going to do that. I'm not going to do that like Steve Jobs did. And most of us aren't.
Right.
But we can do our part in the way that we are best off bringing value to the world and nudge the world forward that way, and hopefully feel good about ourselves.
How did you discover that for yourself? So I actually don't know your background, like what you did before you were this best-selling author and speaker, and so I don't actually know that part of your story. How did you? What did you do then, and how did you sort of find this wheelhouse of what you do now?
Well, I started out in broadcasting. First, I was in radio, and then I was in television. But I never made it big in television. I was in a small market, Mid-America ABC affiliate. But it was very small. The good thing about it was that you got to learn every aspect because it was such a small station. You got to learn how to shoot, how to produce, how to do all those things, which really helped me a lot in knowing how television worked, and it made me a better guest once I had books and I was on, you know what I'm saying? It made it so I could produce videos because I know what it, how to do that. But I wasn't very good at it as far as being a journalist. And it wasn't long before I got into sales. The challenge in sales was that I didn't know how to sell. It's not something that I had real training in. And the company where I worked at the time, the training was negligent at best. And so I floundered for a while. But fortunately, I was in a bookstore one day, and now this is almost 40 years ago, and I came across books by Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins.
Yeah.
And I remember getting the books, and that was the beginning of the journey for me, because sales to me just opened up a whole new world.
Wow.
It really opened up the whole world of personal development to me.
Yeah.
And so I started to really get into sales, loved the idea that sales was what made things happen. And, eventually I worked my way up to sales manager of a company and started speaking. I was actually selling someone else's tapes. That's how long ago this was at the time. And then I got into business doing that. And then, through the years, I started out teaching how to cultivate a network of endless referrals. That was my first program. And my first book was Endless Referrals, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And there were a few others along the line. One of them was called Winning Without Intimidation. And it was about people skills. And this is what I really learned from my dad. And again, I still have them, great parents, both of them. Dad, I relate to in the way that he was always more in the public eye, sort of like I am. And so he was always dealing with people, and I always watched how he dealt with people. And it was always just so amazing because he always was so focused genuinely on them. And I always say to this day, the single greatest people skill is a highly developed and authentic interest in the other person. Yeah. And he didn't say that, but that's what I always observed from him. Right. And I started to really get fascinated in, how dad always was able to just win people over. Just everyone loved him. And it was very natural for him. With me, it
Yeah.
wasn't natural. Okay. With him, it really was.
Hmm.
And so I started really not just taking notes, because I'd always taken notice, but starting to put it down in writing what I had noticed, and started developing more programs around that. And then, eventually that started to manifest itself. Then when the Go-Giver came out, it sort of took my career into a whole different trajectory. And I went from the referrals aspect to the Go-Giver part. And then I've been able to sort of now take this into, and at 60 years old, I'm speaking a lot less out of state. I'm doing more on the internet and really trying now to make the rest of my life about this message. About how to communicate with others in a way that's effective, how to get the results you want when dealing with others in such a way that everyone feels good about themselves,
right?
And everyone comes away better off than they were before. That's my driving purpose.
I love that. I was going to ask you if there was like a common thread, and you just gave it like the common thread to all your work, but it sounds like that was it. Like it's communication. Is that how you would describe it? The common thread? Or what else would you add to it?
No, it really is. It's communication. I guess anything is communication, but it's effective communication. It's doing so in a way that is beneficial to everyone involved.
How did you decide the delivery mechanism? Like, it sounds like books and teaching was a really good way for you to deliver that. How did you discover that or decide that?
Well, I never started out to be an author. I didn't particularly want to even do that. I was speaking for a few years, and I built up a pretty successful speaking business. I had learned from others how to do so in terms of having a system for building the business. And I'm a good student. And so, I wasn't a good student in school. I barely graduated high school, college. I got in on academic probation, and I'm pretty sure I graduated on academic probation. If such a thing is even possible. But it was once I got into sales that I started becoming a student. And but from that point on, I really loved being a student and continuing to learn. So I realized that, and this is when I first got into sales, and when I started studying Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar and following their advice, and I realized that with a system, let's put it this way. I define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key is predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A, and eventually you'll get the desired results of B. I'm a big person for systems. I don't let systems run me. I think sometimes that's a mistake people make. Once they find a great system, all of a sudden the system becomes the thing and everything. No, the systems are supposed to serve the human being. It's still about the people, but the systems are there to serve the people, not the people there to serve the systems.
Exactly.
Bureaucracy is what happens when people start serving systems. And so, and as an entrepreneur, bureaucracy never sits well with me.
That's really good.
But so I had tapped into a system for building a speaking business, and I had done pretty well with that. But I was at a National Speakers Association conference when a few of them said to me, Berg, if you want to take it to the next level, you've really got to write a book. It will help position you. You'll get higher fees. You'll become more bookable, and so forth and so on. And I thought, well, that sounds, pretty right. And so that's why I even wrote Endless Referrals. And, but I again, after that, I wrote Winning Without Intimidation, and there were a few other books, but then kind of came up with the idea for the Go-Giver, because I'd always read a lot of business parables and always enjoyed them very much. I think
me too.
Stories connect on a heart level,
big time.
And I asked John David Mann, a brilliant writer who was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I used to write for, I asked him to be the lead writer and storyteller. There's a big difference between writing a how-to book and writing a parable, which is a work of fiction. And I knew John could really just do great things with this. So we collaborated on that, and he's a fantastic person to co-author with. I mean, he's just brilliant. And so really, it didn't start out getting my message out by writing. I was a speaker who wrote. Now maybe I'm a a writer who speaks, because most of the work is done through books, and then the speaking seems to come after that.
Yeah. I like that distinction. That's really good. I was going to ask, like, what you felt like your breakout moment was. Was it attached to the book, one of the books, like The Go-Giver or Endless Referrals?
Yeah, I mean, I had built up a successful speaking career, but The Go-Giver took it to a new level.
Yeah.
Before that, I'd always utilized my books, especially Endless Referrals, as an outbound marketing tool, which did provide great credibility and was very helpful, just like they said it would be. But The Go-Giver was a whole different thing, because the book began going through all these organizations and companies, and I'd get calls from them just saying, can you speak so-and-so? What's your fee? And, that was a whole lot different. It became a lot more fun.
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming, or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
I was going to ask, like, it may or may not have been this way, but you were talking about systems, and if you do A long enough, knowing that A produces B, you'll get the results. Like, was there something as you started to embrace or harness this important work of talking about communication and a real human connection with people? Was there an A that if you're like, if I just keep doing A, it will result in the growth of this message? Was it like, I just need to keep writing books, or like, what was it?
That's a good question. There was definitely the aspect of, marketing the speaking business, which is like marketing any other business. It's still sales. It's still, a business.
Yeah.
I think as far as with marketing the book, I certainly followed the advice of others. I read up and learned what you need to do. And I was fortunate that I had a lot of relationships built up with people by the time The Go-Giver first came out. And so
I love that.
When that came out, I had a whole lot of people I could get the book into their hands, and they liked it enough that they spread the word. So the initial adopters of The Go-Giver were not the people who needed it. It was the people who were already living their lives and conducting business that way, and they were already very successful. And they, John and I would both get emails from people saying, this is what I've been teaching people how to do, and this is what I've been doing all my career, and blah blah blah. You guys just put it into work, right? So John and I always took pleasure in saying that nothing in The Go-Giver was particularly original. Right? We just happened to put it into story form, and of course, John's great writing made it a very enjoyable story.
Yeah.
But it was 6 months later that we'd start getting letters from the people who had been given the book by someone who they respected, who was a mentor of theirs or a sales manager of theirs, or somebody said, you need to read this book. And the book made a big difference in their business. Yeah. And that was like sort of that second wave.
Mm-hmm. I think what I love about that is what I've experienced in reading your books is this, the quiet ping of truth, right? Like you read it and you go, that just sits right with my soul. Like as I read this, I'm like, that is how you treat people, or it's good, it's right. And then that makes it super easy to share. It makes it super easy to grab a book and be like, here, you need to read this. And I think sometimes, I've gone down the road of internet marketing the last 7 years. And I think there's a lot of people trying to hack the secret success code of like, how do I get people to buy my stuff? And I think ultimately, you might hit a bright spot and get some results, but when you come from what's good for humanity and you nudge the world forward and you put that into your important work, it makes your important work that much easier to share.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I take that as a great compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I mean, because I guess when I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. You know Tim Ferriss?
Not personally, but I've read his
book. Yeah. Well, one of the things I love about his accelerated learning process is he talks about interviewing experts at how they became experts. And then he'll talk about like listening for what they explicitly say that they did to produce a result. And then listening for implicitly what they didn't say that he could sort of connect the dots on that created the result. There you go. Tools of Titans. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought this was really one of the best books. In fact, you can see the how many
all the stickies. Yeah, that's great.
I think the yellow stickies are on more pages than they're not.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. And he has that other one about the mentors, and I haven't read that one yet. I'm looking forward to that one. But this was really one of my favorite books of all time. I thought there was so much great information in this book. Wow.
What was one of your favorite takeaways or lasting impressions from reading that book?
Well, so it's funny. I'd have to go through it to just there's so many notes on these. I'd have to go through it to actually think of what,
right.
There was one thing. But I think overall, it was just that, it's like in the subtitle, the tactics, routines, habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers. I mean, there's a system right there. I mean, they all have different ways of doing things, but there are threads throughout this that of what ultra successful people do that we can all learn from, and we can say, oh yeah, that's something that either I hadn't thought of, or something I knew that, but I haven't been doing that like I should. So there was just so much in that book. It was just fantastic.
I think one of the things I hear in not just in this interview with you, but with others, Michael Mayer is a good example of this. I think a lot of people, what is implicit that isn't said a lot of times in the trying to decode the success is the network. Like that when you came out with your book, there were relationships that you had created, that you had invested in. And a lot of times I think people overlook the importance of the relationship and the network, and they just try to go out and sell something without, and that's part of it, but it's not, there's something in the background that also is going on.
Right.
That is an important asset to leverage your important work in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, to me, it's, and throughout every book, I think at least once in every book, I've said all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Yes. It still comes down to the relationship. I mean, the relationship without the competency isn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
But even competency without the relationships, it's hard to get it, so it's both. Yeah. But that relationship's important, and technology doesn't replace the relationship. If you utilize it correctly, it enhances. It allows us to connect with more people than we otherwise would have, and we can drive relationships pretty deep, just even online. It all goes back to before every tweet, before every post, before every comment, am I bringing value to this other person? And if we are, then we're focused in the right place, and the relationships are going to happen.
What do you, in addition to value, what do you feel like creates connection digitally with people? What has, if somebody were listening to this podcast or any other sort of thing online, what's the thing that has the connection get created and thus a relationship?
What helps the connection? I think, because aside from value, I mean, it's, when you think about it, it's all about value when we define value the correct way, because I'm always defining things, right? Because
it's good.
But so I see value as being the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that holds so much worth or value to someone that they will willingly exchange something for it? Now, with a product or service, they're exchanging money. But with a friendship, it could be exchanging energy. It could, that they're exchanging their energy to invest in this friend. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, when you're approaching from that viewpoint of what value can I add to another human being, what value can I bring to another human being, I think that is what's creating. But one thing we always have to remember, and I think people get stuck here sometimes, and we can all get stuck here because we're all coming at it from our own viewpoint. Right.
Yep.
And that is understanding that value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what we find to be of value. It's not what we think they should think is of value. It's what they believe is of value. And so often, because we see the world from our own, based on our own belief systems, our own subjective truths, right? And we think, well, that other person sees the world the same way I do. We don't think that consciously, but unconsciously, that's what we think. So how could it be any different? It's all we know. But they don't. And that's why it's so important to realize that and to ask questions and really listen.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the concept of an idea, and sometimes that could be the thing that creates connection. Seth Godin, it's one of my favorite books he wrote was Tribes. And he says in Tribes, a tribe is a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea. And I think sometimes in your digital marketing in the world, sometimes it's just the championing of the idea, and that provides value over there because it inspires the other person's ideas and soul, and off they go. But
and a lot of times, and when we talk about leadership, when we talk about influence, people buy into the leader or the influencer before they buy into the idea. In fact, they're more likely to buy into the idea because they first bought into the leader or the influencer.
Yeah, that's good.
And so that's why it's so important. That's why that influencer, and that's why we say influence is about pull. It's not about push. It's not pushing your ideas on people. It's not pushing your will. It's not being push-y. You rarely hear people say, wow, that Dave or that Mary's so influential. She has a lot of push with people.
Right? Yeah.
No, pull. It's an attraction. And great influencers, what we would call genuine influencers, attract people first to themselves. And then to their ideas.
Yeah. What is that? What creates that pull?
I think that pull is created by the influencer who understands a very basic tenet of human nature. And I think that this was communicated wonderfully by Dale Carnegie in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's what I believe is the underlying premise of his book. And I once asked a person who worked with the Carnegie organization if they agreed with this, and they did, which made me feel good, telling me that because they want, but it was the part in the book where Carnegie says, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons.
Wow.
And that is just human nature. Okay. And and when I say they'll do it for their reason, it could be something, external. It could be financial. Sure. But a lot of times it's not. It's that it's congruent with their beliefs.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And so that's why it's so important for an influencer to, again, understand that what I call the clash of belief systems, understanding that as human beings, as individuals, we see the world from our own basic point of view, our own model, our own paradigm, whatever you want to call it. And that's why the great influencer will question themselves to make sure that they're focused outwardly. For example, how does what I'm asking this person to do, that individual or those people in my tribe, to use Seth's language, how does what I'm asking this person to do align with their goals, align with their wants, their needs, their desires? How does what I'm wanting this other person to do, how does it align with their values? And when asking ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, again, not as a way to manipulate another person or a group of people into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment to our ideas, right? As opposed to some kind of compliance or manipulation. Or one of my great friends and a woman who I admire so much. She's a wonderful speaker and author on leadership. Her name is Dondi Scumaci. And what Dondi says, and I love this, she says, compliance will never take you where commitment can go.
Wow.
And when you've earned another person's commitment, that's where influence happens.
Wow. So good. Well, this is really good, Bob. I think so many gems in this conversation. If you had some advice for where people can start to build their body of work, to really start to build their important work in the world, like what's the best place for somebody to really start?
Probably get Tim's book and learn from all those people in his newer book, the one about the Tribe of Mentors, is it called? I'm not sure. Again, I haven't read that one yet, but there you've got a whole bunch of people there who really know their stuff. But really, what I'd say is seek out the information. Seek out the information from those who've accomplished what you want to accomplish, or people who've accomplished things just in life in other areas. It doesn't have to be within the discipline that we're focused. It can be, and learn from them and learn the information and start applying that information. It's always about testing, and it's always about applying, and it's always about, that's why we say to people, a lot of times when people hear the term go-giver, they think that's the opposite of a go-getter. No, it's not. We like go-getters. We want people to take action. Because you can have the greatest ideas, best thoughts, the most fantastic intent, but unless action's put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. So we say be a go-getter and a go-giver. Just don't be a go-taker.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. Well, I think your book, The Go-Giver Influencer, your latest book, the Go-Giver Influencer is a great place to start getting some information. The story that is told there, I think, is really great for anybody in sales, anybody in business. But I think it's a human conversation in that book, which I love. Really honors. You have to read. You just have to go read the story, people. But it really honors the conversation of personal development, growth, sales, etc. So, Bob, if people want to follow your work, if they like to get the book, what are some of the best places for people to connect with what you're doing?
Probably the best place is thegogiver.com without the hyphen. We also have Burg, BURG.com. That's kind of more of a speaker's side, the speaker site. But the books are pretty much, if that's what they wanted to look into, thegogiver.com. And we have a podcast and Facebook Live now that we do every Thursday, and lots of fun stuff. But they can also get the first couple of chapters of every book in the Go-Giver series. And, see if they like it first, and then click through if they do.
Awesome. Bob, thanks for your time today. Thanks for being on the show and for sharing so generously. I know we've met once on a podcast like this, and it's very nice to meet you again and have this time together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you.
All right, take care. Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.